The map of the Eastern Roman Empire in Attila Total War is incredibly accurate. Firstly, we need to include the puppet states as actual territory belonging to the Empire, Nobatia and Lazica, and there we go. The game of course withdraws the Empire back slightly in the Middle East, and then adds some extra lands in what we would now call Libya. However, for the most part, really good. Nobatia existed there as a culture, but not really as a faction in the way it was in the game, at least until another 25 years later, so they're not that accurate, whereas Lazica was a puppet state of the Eastern Roman Empire, and was used for defensive purposes in that region as it appears in-game, so they are accurate. In-game, they start off with the Western Roman Empire and the Ghassanids as allies, whilst at war with the Visigoths, the Alans, the Tanukids and the Huns. Historically, the Ghassanids were a strong ally for the Empire, and they were used as a buffer zone to help defend against the Lakhmids, although they were closer to more of a client state than an actual ally, if you know what I mean. As for being at war with the Huns, the faction leader Arcadius would be the one to later pay tribute to the Huns in return for peace. But overall, it's accurate. Welcome to Total War Profiled, a series that looks into the historical accuracy and inaccuracy behind factions in Total War, and today, for the first time, we are branching out of the old classical titles of Rome 1 and Medieval 2 to enter into Attila Total War. This episode will look into a faction, the Eastern Roman Empire, and see if it is accurate. The purpose of this series is not to mock the titles, but rather to find what inspired the developers to make the decisions that they made. We've already looked at the map. This video will look into the family members and other important characters of Eastern Rome, then it will delve into the unit roster, and then finally it will look into the faction intro scene, as there's a few interesting things that are picked out from there. To get out of the way with, the faction trait increases interest by 5% and tariffs by 50%. It's called economic power, and is used to represent, well, their economic power as a trade empire. So yeah, I'd say that's accurate enough. Well, not accurate, but it's about what it's meant to represent. Onto the characters, and I am loving how much historical research went into this game, especially compared to what we've been used to. The game's faction leader during 395 AD is Flavius Arcadius, historically accurate. There was an event where a load of Goths in Constantinople were slaughtered, simply for their culture. Historically, this is seen as just being an anti-barbarian statement, and in-game, he has the character trait, hates barbarians, which is one small detail that I really like. The Emperor's wife, Aelia Eudoxia, is accurate in-game. However, as for the Emperor's brother in-game, Flavius Rufinus, he is less accurate, and he simply did not exist in the family. He is based off a consul who lived at the time, and there may actually be many reasons why the game put him in the royal family of the Eastern Roman Empire. It has been described in some sources that he was basically the ruler of the Eastern Roman Empire at the time, due to the ineptness of Arcadius. And so, to represent his power, the developers put him in as faction heir and brother to Arcadius, but adopted into the family. That's an important thing, not actually born into a family. Rufinus is described as being ambitious, greedy and always trying to claim further power for himself, gaining him traits such as political animal and untrustworthy in Attila Total War. Despite all of this though, Rufinus died in 395 AD, the start date of Attila Total War. It's very odd to have him here, but this series is not about mocking the game for its inaccuracy, but rather to see where the developers got their inspiration from. And I think there were better ways they could have gone about this, but overall I can understand why they went down this route, and I like it. And at least they had him as an adopted member, not an official family member. Okay, this is where things got a little out of hand. Now, from what I have looked into so far, each general in the game, well, almost all of them, are historically accurate. and that's quite a lot to go through. Now, to save this from being a 1 hour long video, I have decided to instead put them in a table. You can see them here, their names, some in-game details, and down below in the description I have linked Wikipedia sites where you can learn more, if you want to know more about these people and whether they are accurate, but there's just too many for me to go over in this video. However, I will go through a couple of them. Interesting to note though that, although they are based off historical characters, some of them are just politicians or aristocrats, and not generals at all, or some of them don't even have any ties to the area where they're spawning as a general in the game. So that is one interesting thing that you might find in this. Okay, first there's a man in control of the army in Constantinople. His army is Legio 11. This man is the only general to not have a surname, which is why I was curious. In game, he's called Vindonius, and I could not find anything about him. Nothing at all. Second, we have Appius Abutanus, and again, I couldn't find anything about him. It starts in Bulgaria, on the front line, with a half-replenished army. These two characters here are really interesting in the game, like, there's something unique about them, but I couldn't find anything about them. Of course, my searches are only online, and I don't have all day to record this, so it's done very quickly. I may have missed stuff, I miss a lot of stuff, but from my basic search, I believe they're probably fiction, unless anyone can correct me. Maybe I just didn't look deep enough. The game also starts you off with a statesman named Eutropius, who historically was a historian, which I found interesting. The 3 candidates for adoption are all fiction. Do we finally get to talk about agents? No. Because of course, the one time a faction seems accurate, they start off with 0 agents, not a single one. 7 episodes into Total War profiled and not one accurate agent yet. I'm getting annoyed. We gotta find one someday. Onto the unit roster. Finally, they start to mess up a little bit more here. Now, I decided to pick a few units out to analyse that were not part of a Western Roman Empire's unit pool. First, we have the Swordsman unit, Nick Maroy. Nick Maroy. Sounds like some Hollywood actor or something. I've of course messed up that pronunciation. And I found nothing about these at all, so I'm assuming these are fiction, but, you know, my area of focus is Napoleonic, not Attila Total War. So, yeah, it's all about what I can just quickly find online. Second, we have the Axeman unit, Hetaria Guards, which are historically accurate for the Middle Ages, along with the Tagmata, who again are accurate, but for a time different to when the game takes place. Both of these units are more part of the Byzantine Empire rather than the Eastern Roman Empire. It's interesting why they're here, but again, it's all about finding where they're inspired from. It's not accurate, but this is where it's interesting. They didn't have the unit names, so they branched out a bit, and they saw the Byzantine Empire as the Eastern Roman, but they're the same thing the developers saw them as, so they just combined them with the units just to fill up some gaps. And yeah, I found that interesting. This is the purpose of the series. The faction also has a reference to the past and neighbouring cultures, which are quite interesting. Firstly, their unit pool involves cataphractari, cataphracts, inspired by Eastern empires, and bow cavalry, again from similar cultures. Second, they also have a unit called pikemen, which the Western Empire does not have access to. These pikemen, I believe, are meant to be a reference to the old Greek phalanxes. I found that interesting again. It's all the same stuff. Where do they get their inspiration from? Last but not least, the faction intro. There's 2 quotes I picked out of this. First, the narrator describes Constantinople as being where the spirit of Rome prospered, a reference to the wealth and power that flowed in, and also to another 1,000 years of history that the Eastern Roman Empire would have, in the form of Byzantium, that the Western Roman Empire did not really have. The second quote, paying neighbouring kings to do their will, is a reference to when Arcadius began paying the Huns in return for peace. And I believe that is everything. 3 things I want to say before we end this episode. Firstly, next episode of Total War Profiled will take place on Friday the 18th, and it will be about Bronze Age Egypt from Rome Total War. Interesting because Egypt was historically a Hellenistic nation at the time, phalanxes and stuff. This puts the faction at about 1,000 years behind the times. Second, thank you for watching and sharing this series. It's turning out to be my second most viewed series formats yet, just behind time lapses. So I hope it can continue to grow, and I do hope you enjoy it. I think this is where I want to take my channel. Part-time history stuff, part-time let's plays, and a few interesting unique stuff in there as well. And thirdly, I have decided to expand it a little bit. Starting this Tuesday, and on every Tuesday, I am launching Paradox Profiled, which will do the exact same, but look into Paradox games, such as Crusader Kings 2, Europa Universalis 4, maybe even Hearts of Iron eventually, and look into the historical accuracy behind them. Total War will continue every Saturday as always, don't worry. You don't have to dislike my Paradox videos in fear that it's going to take over the world. Don't worry, because I know one of you always does. But Paradox will just be an extra video that I want to do every Tuesday and just see how it does. I enjoy Paradox, there's a lot of history in there, and I want to explore into it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Please share this with someone who you think might be interested in this stuff. Please subscribe and maybe even become a Patreon, but be warned, the highest Patreon tier comes with a personalised insult, and I don't think many of you will be able to handle it. All as a joke, of course. Hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.